Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Stool podcast, a podcast for woodworkers and the maker community in general. This is episode number 12. My name is Robin Lewis from robinlewismakes.com. I'm joined by Joey Chalk from Kim Post Timberworks.
Hello.
And Jordan Crawford from Periodic Furniture Studio.
Hello.
We live stream the recording on YouTube every Thursday evening at 6 p.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time, or UTC plus 10. Or you can watch or listen to it later on YouTube, iTunes, or SoundCloud. Want to say hello to everyone in the chat. We'll get to your comments towards the end of the show, but feel free to chat amongst yourselves. The idea being that this is also a place for people to meet. So before we get any further, I've just got one announcement that I want to make. Myself, Joey, and Jordan are going to be doing a talk at the Malini Wood Expo this May. It's in Queensland. The actual town is Malini. It's from the 5th to the 7th of May. And we're going to be using this as a bit of a potential meetup opportunity. So Neil from Pask Makes is going to be coming down. So far, it's just the four of us. But I really want to invite you guys to come along. So if you're interested, if you want details or anything, I guess I'll put links in the description below, or feel free to contact us about it. We're doing a talk on the Saturday at 12:30 in the main stage. So, it'd be great to have some support there. But ultimately, it's a really good opportunity for us to have an Australian woodworking meetup. We see it a lot in the US, so this is our opportunity. All right, so before we get into this episode's topic, let's do a quick rundown of what we've all been working on. Joey, that's your cue.
Okay, how can I always go first? Okay, so not a lot of actual woodwork for me this week. Done a little bit, but I've been working a lot on the paperwork, calling clients, emails, and fun stuff. A lot of drawing this week. Working out cutting lists. And I have, so some of you might know I wrote an article a few months ago, I put it up for sale on my website. And
it's a really good article. I should just put
thank you. I had started a second article at the time, or what was going to be part of the same article, and I ended up splitting some off. And so I've kind of been re-energized for some reason to start or finishing that article, which is about cabinet making. So I'm kind of been trying to get into that as well. It's a very slow process because it's kind of write a paragraph, draw a picture, and then write a paragraph, draw a picture. So, or vice versa. So it takes a bit of time. And also this week, I went down this rabbit hole of multi-tool, which is the best multi-tool because I've been I really like them. I think they're awesome things. I have an older Leatherman that I keep it in the van when I'm doing. It's always handy on install day. There's always something I use it for, but it's not very. It's a cheaper version, and it just doesn't really do what it should. So I ended up spending a bit of money, bought a good one, and that arrived today. So that was awesome.
Was that a Surge, or like Steel Leatherman? So like a Surge?
I got the
Wave or something.
Skeletal.
Oh, that is a cool name.
Yeah.
Is that the one with all the cut out, like laser cut, see-through bits on the case?
Yeah, it's pretty much like a skeleton tool. It has a one-handed opening knife, which is the best part, and then so it's only got three tools on it, really, but it does exactly what I want, and it's the lightest one they have, and so literally you cannot tell it's in your pocket. So that's awesome.
Yeah, I'm a bit of a fiend when it comes to Leatherman too. I think it's my theatre background. It's just always having something on my belt. I love them.
Yep.
Multi-tools, aren't those also the little power tools with the... For a second I thought, I didn't know Leatherman made those. That's an interesting direction they've gone.
Yeah, they are multi-tools. They're the electric ones, but I'm talking about the pocket knife style.
Yeah, got you. And your that sofa of yours?
Yes. So that's finished. The video is pretty much ready to go. The guy had ordered upholstery at the same time as I started making it, and so that was a little bit nerve-wracking because I had to make the upholstery. I had to make the sofa exactly the same size as my drawings, which is not usually what I do, and so that's not ready, and it's not going to be ready, the upholstery, for like another 3 weeks or something. And I told the guy, I'm happy to hold on to your sofa for a week, and then you have to start paying some storage fee for it. And so that week was today. I emailed him this morning and said, okay, it's going to be $25 a day storage fee. And so now I'm delivering it tomorrow. So
Good.
But so I won't be able to get proper finished pictures of it because he won't have the upholstery there. So I'm not sure how that's going to go, but yeah.
I was quite interested by that diagonal that you've got on the two ends. Does that need to be there to brace the backrest? Because it feels like you're really breaking the flow, but functionally wise, you can't use that as like a chase anymore.
No, I didn't really want to put it there, and the clients had some example photos with it in, and they were kind of keen on it. And I was like, well, it definitely will stop the back from snapping off if someone were to dive onto the sofa and crash into it. Yeah. So it definitely is helping. I agree. It kind of makes it you kind of lose some of the functionality. You're kind of directed into the way you should sit on that sofa. Obviously, people we don't know what we're talking about. It's on my Instagram, and there will be a video at some point. But
yeah, I just had to go have a look at it because I had no idea what you're talking about.
Right.
and obviously now just going on the Instagram picture, it's hard to tell. But does that suit the overall design? Because again, it just looks it looked immediately out of place.
Yeah, I guess I'm used to seeing it. It definitely is something most people are just not used to seeing, a big diagonal. And when I first saw the example picture, I was kind of like, oh, okay, it's very functional, but it is its own style, I suppose. I've kind of highlighted where that diagonal brace meets the sofa seat. I've highlighted it with a half-lapped dovetail join there, so it is kind of making a feature of the joinery. Maybe it might. I'm not sure if that's going to take away from it or add to it. But yeah,
just looking at it now, I quite like it. You're talking about what goes from kind of the backrest support down to the base, right?
Yeah, diagonally. Yeah,
I think it looks quite good, and if it's got like a black or a dark leather with it on the upholstery,
I've no idea what the upholstery is going to be, but I would have really liked to see it, but who knows?
Yeah. All right, sure. Jordan, how about you?
Okay, I've had a few things this week. Let's see. Biggest one is I finished off that American oak dining table that I was kind of just getting into last week. And I think that's going out for delivery tomorrow, as long as my client actually gets his address to me tonight.
Yeah.
I've been waiting on that one for a few days, but I'm sure it'll come through. It's been paid for, so we're good. And yeah, I was quite pleasantly surprised. So that design, the client came to me with the design, which was all these like offset turned legs, and they were kind of tapered and splayed. And to me, it looked really clunky and not that functional, and that had the floor connection and all of that. So I kind of took it from that and a few conversations, and when I designed it, I thought I wouldn't really like it that much, but once the top and the base actually became one piece, it grew on me instantly. I mean, I realize it's pretty similar to the last table, but that's just the way
it seemed to me like a very organic, what do you call it? Progression.
It was kind of the table that the stance table was meant to be, but couldn't be because of time restraints and manufacturing. So it was kind of what I had in mind, but adapted away from. So it worked out well, really. As far as
I got two questions about it.
Yeah.
So the feet kind of.
Yeah.
Are you? Well, I'm not sure. If there's an uneven floor, do you think that's going to cause issues, or would you just put some little packers on the points that need to
Yeah.
touch?
So I've put 4 pads on the bottom already, like cork pads. So it's just on each corner, and I don't think the floor would be more than they're like 1.5 mil thick. So
yeah, right.
I can't see it resting on the base like that. And being that it's like a brand new, one of those tilt up style buildings, I think it should be fine. Yeah. And yeah, if it is an issue, that piece is screwed on.
Yeah, right.
So what I could do is actually drill that hole out bigger and put adjustable feet on. But
yeah, true.
It won't be an issue.
Second question: the buttons holding the top on.
Yeah.
I've come across this problem before with a kind of similar-ish design where you have no apron to hide all that stuff.
Right.
I guess what are your thoughts on it? I mean, because personally, it's okay from what I feel, but I don't like that when you look under a table like that, you see this very functional thing on a very aesthetically nice table. There's not very many ways around it. I mean, what do you think?
Yeah, I'm on the same boat. I'm not a huge fan of it. I don't think it detracts from it that greatly because I did shape them to be, they've got all the corners knocked off and it's got cool angles. So it kind of matches the geometry in that regard. But I couldn't think of a better way to attach it that would still allow for a little bit of movement on that style of base. And I've used it. I've used it before on coffee tables, and it's fine.
Yeah. I mean, you really don't see it unless you're like down on the floor cleaning up or something. But
it's only going to be other like furniture makers that look at that and think, oh, that's ugly. Like,
the only way I've come up with that style of design, do a completely hidden fixing, is at the top of the rails. You have a small sliding dovetail sticking up, and then you make a large pocket in the bottom of the tabletop that allows that dovetail. But yours wouldn't be impossible to install actually because you've got X-shaped legs, so that's a whole different story.
Yeah, one way you could possibly do is like a keyhole as well, so with a big button head kind of bolt. But then
that's what I was gonna say.
The issue is expansion. I mean, does it allow for enough expansion? I don't know. But yeah, it'd be cool to engineer something that. Yeah,
I'm sure there's. Well, I guess that next way you'd go like Maloof style and just drill right through your tabletop.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, on that coffee table that I made years ago, which had a similar base, I did just drill really long all the way through the actual leg itself down, and I fastened it with screws, but that was a smaller top, and I didn't care about expansion on that width. But on this one, it's something I was a little bit wary of.
I thought they looked pretty cool. I didn't, at no point did I look at that and think they needed to be hidden. If anything, it's kind of like when you see the inside of a clock. I don't know. I got the same vibe. Yeah, like that is the workings.
Yeah. I like
taking it.
I like thinking of it like that. Makes it feel more polished. But yeah, what else is there? Oh, I made another. Only on Instagram. I didn't film anything. I made a tote for my neighboring unit. He wanted a tool tote for some like tape rolls. So I made that for him, and then instantly people said, "Oh, that's not going to be strong enough." And I'm like, "Well, it's holding tape. It will be fine. And if it breaks, he hasn't got a long way to come."
They can tape it together.
Exactly.
Is that when you say that was that on Instagram? You were getting those comments.
It might have been on my actual Facebook page.
Oh god!
Because it cross posts, but yeah, I had to laugh at that because it's always someone that knows everything. Which was it was good. On top of that, let's see, had a new commission come through for just a bench seat, which is going to be really It's really simple, but you know the waterfall style. So you do the miters, and the grain continuously wraps around. I've had payment come through for that, so I've started building that today, and that should be a fun little build. And other than that, it's just been website stuff, SEO, and all the boring stuff that I don't know how to do. So I paid someone to do it for me.
That's the way to do it.
Yeah.
So this week I have been working on, well, the first thing I did was finish the cladding on the outside of the workshop, that cement sheet. That's all done, which was just in time because we had some bucketing rain the last couple of days. So I was out there with duct tape trying to get all this, because basically what's happened is I've built the wall out from the original wall. So there's a gap straight down the back of that wall, and it's obviously all sealed because it's all, there's all noggins and everything. And so I was out there with the duct tape just trying to seal that up before the rain came down. But yeah, that's all taken care of now. I've trimmed it out. Just got to do the window and door, and then I'm done on that.
Your crazy colors, man. What were you doing?
Yeah, so back in 2016, myself and a few other creators did this thing. It was a pretty random concept. I won't go into too much detail what it was, but it was basically we took this simple idea and we tried to make it as dramatic as possible. So we were cutting a log. It was someone's video. I made a comment, Cactus Workshop. I don't know if you've watched any of his videos. I said to Carlos, everything you do is amazing. You could just cut a piece of wood and it looks incredible. And then we were both in the comments, we're like, oh, that's an interesting idea. Let's make a video cutting a log and make it as dramatic as possible. And so we turned that into a concept. That was back in 2016. And now I'm doing it again this year. So it's all about filmic style. So it's obviously workshop based, but the focus is on, being as filmic as possible. I've actually asked Jordan to jump on board as well with it because it's sort of in line with where his channel's going.
Interesting.
And so I bought this new camera. It's got this amazing slow-mo feature. And when you throw powder like that up, amazing. I was up last night just editing this because it was such a fun project to edit.
Cool.
So I haven't actually cleaned the workshop yet. It's a disaster. But I bought...
Just wait till you start working on a nice piece of beach and you put it down on the bench and it comes out green and pink.
Yeah. So I bought 40 bags of this powder and I used 5. So now I have...
How many bags?
40. I bought 40 thinking I'm going to burn through it, and I used 5. So I've got all this powder that I don't know what to do with, but yeah. Anyway, so that was...
You could use it for staining resin. That'd be good.
Yeah, so I did think of that. Yeah. Epoxy. So that was... So I got that done this week as well. And then other than that, I started trying to plan out the bathroom renovation. I've been contacting plumbers, electricians, window makers. Because I only have one bathroom, I've got to do this as quickly as possible because we're going to be showering outside in an outdoor shower until we can get it right. So,
man, that's hard. That's hard work.
That sounds pretty good to me.
So I did it in my last house. I did it to the toilet, which was, again, it was the one and only toilet. So, it was in and out as quick as possible. And we managed, but now it's the toilet and the shower. So, yeah, I really want to map this out. And having never done a wet area before.
It's at least a week, man.
Yeah, that's what everyone, because the waterproofing takes days to dry. So
you could always just look at hiring. I know when my friends did their bathroom, they hired the portaloos, but they do them as a shower.
Yeah, it's got those luxury versions.
Yeah. So those are $600 for a week.
Right. So you already looked into that.
Which is not. I don't think it's bad.
No, not for a room.
It's not bad, but if I'm going to do it, I want to make sure that I'm only using it for a week. The project doesn't drag on. So not having any experience doing this before. I'm trying to put in a lot of planning into it before.
That's well worth it.
Yeah.
Ask a lot of questions of the tradies and how long they think they're going to take and all that, and get it nailed down. Well,
that's it. I was on the phone to a plumber today, and he was sort of saying, what do you want done? And I didn't want to go into too much detail because I want him to be here so I can ask him the questions like, when do I call you in the process? I do the drywalling, and do I do that before I call you or after all those things? Because I'm not a builder. I don't know.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's all, but it'll work out. It always does. All right. So this week's topic, I came up with this topic because 2 days ago I got a text from someone who got my details through the sawyer who cut all that wood for me. So it's quite an interesting joining of the dots. It's quite nice that it worked out like that. And this lady wants to have a bookshelf made. Unfortunately, she wants it made out of the tree that the sawyer has just cut down and is milling it up. So I said, cool, no problem. It's going to take 6 to 12 months probably for that stuff to dry, depending on how it's dried. But let's start the planning process now. It's the best it's the best job I've got going at the moment. So let's put some time into it. So she said to me, what's the next step? And I said, well, let's start designing. Let's start working it out. And before I got into it, I thought, well, I don't actually know how to start the design process. So I just wanted to ask Joey and Jordan, how they go about doing it and sort of the finer details. So the first question that I wanted to ask you guys is to do with the software packages. So your Fusion and SketchUp. I hear those terms thrown around all the time. I've had a look at SketchUp before, but I kind of felt like the amount of time that I was going to put into it wasn't worth it for me. But now that I want to design stuff and show it to a customer, it seems like the way to go. Yeah. Totally. So Jordan, does that mean that you use it then?
Yeah. So for me, I use SketchUp. I have used Fusion a few times, but it's just too advanced, in my opinion. It's just, there's so much you can dive into that I never get around to it. But SketchUp is awesome because it's 3D modeling. So literally what you're modeling is what you have. And the learning curve is really quick. Right? Everything's boxes or extruding or putting like a new face onto something and then cutting that face out. So you've got your hollow.
How quick are we talking?
For me, I would say a week of coming up with a design and then figuring out all of the little things. You should be laughing. So for me now, I will talk to a client. I will, say, kind of get an idea what they're looking for. Also ask for their sample images. If there's something they've got in mind, send through an image. And right away, even before I start sketching on paper, I will go into SketchUp and actually come up with a few models. And that 2 or 3 models will take me 20 minutes. And then I can send it through to clients. So these are the 3 kind of concepts that I've got in my mind. Do any of these look like something you think of? But there's the thing with SketchUp is because it is so simple, it's often hard to find the features that make it easier to use. For example, if you really wanted to model something heavily, it's like including the mortises and the tenons and the dovetails and everything into it, there's tools in there which you can actually use to subtract one component from the other. So you don't actually have to model the tenon and the mortise. You just have to model the tenon, and then you subtract that component from,
Sorry,
whatever.
were you just talking? Did you just say that in Fusion or SketchUp?
That's in SketchUp.
Yeah. I'm trying to think now. Is that the Pro version? Because they took a lot of tools away fairly recently.
Yeah, so I don't think the new version of the free one has it, but on my computer, I think it's the 2011 or 2012 version that I'm using.
Yeah.
Because exactly that reason.
Yeah.
Yeah, I went online to have a look at it now, and it just launches in the browser. You don't even download it. I don't know if I was just looking.
Oh, really?
They've got a new one, but still look for SketchUp Make, and that's the software. SketchUp Make.
Okay. Yeah, talking about all the mortise and tenons, one of Cuffy's latest videos, he goes through the design, and it's all there.
Yeah, I did see that, and
tons of it.
Like for me, I'd never model in that much detail if it's for a client. But if it's for some plans that you intend to sell, then I include all of that stuff. That's all I really can say. Is that worth it?
SketchUp for me is the only. I mean, it's probably just about my most used tool I have. Like it's so quick. Like Jordan was saying, I can draw a dining table in under a minute. So it's literally it's ridiculously quick. Yeah. So I've actually had clients in the workshop and modeled in real time and showing them, look, I can make this, bang, done.
Man, I looked at it once and this is coming from someone who's got a software background. I looked at it for about half an hour and I just felt like I wasn't winning with it. I was just making more work for myself.
Right. There's some good tutorials out there. So I know when I first started using it, the best tutorial was the Wood Whisperers one.
Okay.
Like it was really simple, but his workflow just made it make sense to me. Okay. And I've looked at the ones like I think Jay Bates has quite a few and all of that, but that to me didn't make sense. The basics that were given in the Wood Whisperer video were enough for me to take it and actually start rolling and finding out the new details. Because when I wanted to, say, how do I add a radius onto this corner, I just Google it. So I've made the table, but now I've added the radius, and it's just.
So I just did the tutorials that are built into SketchUp. I did like 2 of them. And I was like, okay, build a chair, okay, draw a house, done. And then from there, it was just, I found that the only real way to learn was to actually get a job and draw that job. It was very difficult to pick an object and draw it, I found, because I had no motivation really. So, and it got to the point now I can draw cabriolet legs on SketchUp, or I could in the old version. There are add-ons now that you can get to do all these things again, the plugins. It's just it's a bit harder to play with them, but at some point I will probably buy the pro version. But at the moment, the free one does a perfect job, and the styles that you can add onto it, which is something I've only just started getting into probably in the last year. You can really make, even without a fancy plugin for making it photorealistic. You can just change the background colors and change the line textures and stuff, and it makes it look really arty-farty, hand-drawn.
Lee was just saying in the chat.
I always send... Sorry, Rob, go.
I was just going to say, Lee was saying in the chat as well, have you guys tried the Visualizer add-on for SketchUp? It renders your sketch into a more realistic version. So that's basically what you're talking about, Joey.
Yeah, you don't need, you can do that. You can go that far. I personally can't be bothered because at the end of the day, it's still just a drawing. But sometimes I think clients prefer just black and white rather than full-on photographs, but some clients prefer it. Depends.
In styles as well, there's you can stylize the entire sketch. So often I do this drawn line, so it looks like it's hand-drawn, and that's my initial drawing that I send to the client.
Yeah.
So it looks like a hand-drawn drawing. Yeah.
Exactly right. It looks like it's a hand-drawn, but on an iPad or something. And it looks cool. And then if they decide on something, I'll go to, it's not the model warehouse, but there's a style warehouse or a background warehouse. And you can download all the wood textures and all that sort of stuff. So you can get fairly realistic drawings.
That model warehouse is genius for me. When just about every job, I'll just go and steal, not steal, but you can just download someone else's model. Like if you're drawing a desk, you can just go and download an iMac computer and keyboard and throw it on the desk in 2 seconds, and it looks like it's all set up.
A bunch of books for your bookcase.
Yeah, it's very easy.
But that's the stuff that I guess you want. You want the client to be able to see it and visualize it. So
Sure, you can put the window in the room, put the shadow, the sun coming through the window, and suddenly it looks like, oh, this guy knows what he's doing. So,
smoke and mirrors.
I was going to say, Rob, what I do, especially for built-in jobs, always do it. When I'll go and measure up the house, the room, and I'll draw that whole room to scale in SketchUp. And then whenever I'm making measurements for the job, I just literally am measuring off my SketchUp drawing, and I throw my my site drawings away. And then I just believe that I drew it the same as what I wrote down. And then,
and you get there on install day and there's an extra wall.
Yeah. So yeah, that's what I do. Like, I draw each room I'm working on exactly how it is. Take a bunch of photos. I'll draw the skirtings, draw the windows where they have to be, and then like I've got all my critical measurements whenever I need them.
Yeah, that's interesting. So I did say to her, when you're thinking about the design, think about the room and how it's going to fit in the room. Because I know you guys have said that before. You know, a lot of times people don't think about the room that it's going to be in. But I guess that's taking it one step further, and then you can show them what it'll look like in their room.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, that's really good. All right. So bottom line, I need to get my SketchUp skills up. And now, in terms of when you deal with the client on on the design, are you doing this face to face, or is it all via email or telephone? Because I think, Joey, you've said in the past it's all email for you, isn't it?
As much as I can do, unless the client happens to come in to the workshop. The reason is mainly that I want to vet the client a little bit. I don't want to have too many tire kickers. So, because the absolute last thing you want to do is go and have a site visit and spend a day talking and drawing, and then they say, "Oh, yeah, no, we'll wait till next Christmas."
Yeah,
which means and so you absolutely don't want to spend a day away from the workshop if you're not getting paid for it. So you've got to make the client do a little bit of homework, and that for me is taking photos, sending some basic measurements through, just enough information for me to draw up a sketch, and then it goes to the client with a price, and then once everything's okay, then if I need to, I'll go to site. So when it comes to designing the piece, the client generally gives me 2 or 3 photos of things I've found online, right? I'll draw it, take the bits they want from each picture, draw it up in the right scale, send them a picture with a price. Now, they can make as many changes as they like to that drawing, because it only takes me 2 seconds generally to change something on the drawing. But once the deposit's paid, that means we're all good. That last drawing is the one.
So do you then, how do I say it? Do you then include any design into your actual price? So you add X amount of dollars onto your quote, because you're not getting deposit before you're coming out with a final design. Yeah,
so on my website it says like free design and drawings and stuff, and that is really what it is. It's free mainly because I can do it so quickly. And especially when we're dealing with most of the things we build are versions of square boxes, so it's very quick to draw them to give basic ideas of what they're going to receive. On occasion, I've had to do very elaborate drawings with curves and all sorts of things, and that's when I will add something on for my time. If I get the job, in the pricing area, I'll add a couple of hours on.
Because for me, my design service is free, but I will only come up with concepts, and it's unlimited in that regard. So here's a really simple drawing of what we're thinking, but I won't finalize the design until the deposits come through. It's still free, but I just won't spend 6 hours refining something. Because I had been burnt once before, where I spent almost 2 days coming up with this really complex desk. And then they just say, "Oh, actually, we're going to hold off for a while and rethink about what we want."
Doesn't that require a lot of trust from your clients who have never met you before? Like, because you could just put together the design, like this is roughly what it's going to be like, and then they pay the deposit, and the next thing it's covered in finials or something.
The thing is it's not. It sounds like I'm coming up with this kid's sketch, and that's all it is. It's still basically the completed model, but it's just proportions aren't quite locked in, or this shelf is not at the correct height, or it's just those little details, which is, this is a quick drawing, it's pretty close, but it's not spot on. And then it's when it comes to really locking every detail in. Like,
I kind of, I'm a little bit different in that I will actually give them the drawing that is to scale. It's got the actual measurements on it. And that way, in my quote, I will say, I'm going to make this as per the drawings. Because that way, if they're not happy with something, they go, oh, the table's 100 mil too long. I go, well, let's go see what's on the drawing, and let's see what I made, and they're the same. So actually, now you have to pay for me to change this.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good point.
That's what I like. I like that to be able to say, hey, look, go and look at the drawing. It's all on there.
Yeah. See, I would still do that with the drawing, but it's not until a deposit's being paid, because it's not. Yeah. That's like, I wouldn't give them a scale drawing, because then if they wanted to, they could take that drawing to the next guy just because he offers it for $10 cheaper.
Yeah.
They can have the design, but that guy's got to put some work into it too. Like, I'm not going to just give the next guy my design for nothing. So you have to work for it.
And then how long do you guys do this that back and forth exchange, Jordan? Is it like will you just keep doing this until they want to put the money down, or
I mean,
do you eventually say, right, you've got to come up with an idea at some point?
Generally, I try and find a budget first, and I design. If their budget's only $500, then I know I can only really put a maximum of 2 days into it. So I'll design something around their budget. But in regards to how long it can go on for, generally speaking, my initial conversation with them gives me a really good idea. They give me a few images that they like. I like this detail here and this detail there. So generally, one of the first 3 concepts I come up with, which is my go-to, so the first email I send to them with all the images is three concepts. One of them is exactly what they're wanting. There's only been 1 or 2 occasions where I've had to completely rethink it because, we weren't on the same page. But generally, I'd say it goes on for the maximum part of 2 days. Initial drawings sent out, they come back saying, that's exactly what I want. And then the next day, I spend refining it. And they've said, yeah, let's go ahead. So they've said they'll deposit the money. I start refining it.
Yeah. With this particular person that contacted me, I sent them a couple of pictures that I found on Google, like, what about this? What about this style? Just sort of like as boring as this or as interesting as this. And they sort of came back and said, well, that's exactly what I want. So it didn't seem like there was too much involved.
Yeah.
Like they weren't eyeing out the smallest detail. They just brought it in.
Did you say that you looked on Google for the images?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, my only suggestion would be try and get them to do a little bit of the homework and come to you with those images, because then they're obviously going to choose things they do like.
Yeah, which is what my initial email was: send me some pictures of what you're interested in. I then got a response of, I'm not very creative, which that's the tire kicking warning signs that you guys talk about. Obviously, I'm in a situation where I can jump on this because it's
well, that's not really a tire kicking situation. That is more of in a sense. On one hand, it's probably good news for you because you can pretty much do whatever you like and steer them towards what you're after.
Yeah.
And it is sometimes quite difficult to work with a client who knows exactly what they want, and when you know that that's right at the limit of your skill set, you're like, can I actually pull this off? We might need to somehow compromise if I'm going to get this job. So that's another take on it.
This particular job is using a tree that they've grown up around. So there's only one tree like this. So my gut is to go as simple as possible, because I can't just muck this up and go to the store and buy some more. So I'm trying to get it as simple as possible.
And I think you were going to get onto this. One of your subjects was when you have a very limited supply of timber like this. For me, the designing almost needs to stop about where you are. Like, you have an idea of what you want, and what the rough sizes of this thing is going to be, presumably. but you really have no idea how much usable timber you're going to get out of this tree.
Yeah.
And so the size of this bookcase might end up being a spice rack because the timber could be absolutely terrible.
Yeah.
And so when you have a finite amount of timber, you definitely need to work around. There could be some compromises where you could say, right, we could make a feature out of this part of the project, out of your timber, and we have to use a secondary timber to fill out the rest of the stuff to make it a functional piece. So, for example, we could do the tabletop out of your timber, and then we're going to have to use something else for the base because there's just not enough good material.
Yeah.
That's what my concern would be in this situation, because most of the time, every time a client has said, "Oh, I've got this stack of timber under the house," it is terrible. Clients just see a stack of timber and think every piece is going to be good. Whereas when you actually start milling it and looking at it, probably a third of it is usable. So it's definitely something to be cautious of, I think.
One of my suggestions to her was, and I think this is a mid-century modern look, is where you get like painted white MDF. So it's just that super clean white carcass, and then you put the top on, because that's pretty straight. Is that mid-century modern?
No, I don't know what that style is technically, but
anyway, that's what I was thinking, because I've seen that done a lot.
Right.
And provided you get the cabinet side of it done nice and slick, then it can look quite nice. And then we're just saying we can, as you say, pick out the best piece of timber. We're just focusing on your fancy timber for the top.
Or you could or the shelves could be their timber, and you can make the carcass out of whatever you like, painted plywood or MDF. And that would look probably quite nice. I don't mind the white paint and natural timber look if it's done with a bit of consideration.
I think it's so rad. Last week we talked about John Peters. He's done a couple of cabinets like that, and I just think it is such a magic look. But it's got to be well done, because as soon as you get a bit of the edges start to fray or whatever on the carcass, then it's awful.
Yeah.
But if it's done right. Well, that was sort of one of the questions was, especially from the perspective of if you get something, or do you just take that job and you just think, well, I can't make a mistake? It's as simple as that.
If it's so high stress, it may be worth quoting in, a couple of sheets of cheap particle board or something like that, just so you can do a few practice cuts. Do a proper mock-up, get everything kind of dialed in. If it is that, that tight and daunting, it could be a good idea. But
interesting, yeah. I really don't. Well, no, I say I don't want to go down that route. That's just more of a, we've talked about this in the past. There is no try. What did Yoda say? There is no try, and you do, or something.
Something like that.
But if it comes down to it, then maybe I should. To be fair, though, the tree looks pretty sizable, and the bookshelf that she wants is 1 meter by 1 meter.
Okay, that's right. So it's only a small shelf anyway.
Yeah, so we shouldn't have too much trouble with that.
Or you can keep the rest of the timber and make a dining table.
Yeah.
Well, one of the things that she said to me is the top half of the tree, the branches are, or the trunk is 200 mil thick, so it's pretty small. She said to me, can I give you some of the tree as payment, which I didn't really want. I didn't really want to go down that road, so I might have to, because it's really nice, but it's not a particularly nice size piece of wood. And if I'm going to do this as a business, logs don't pay bills, so it's just
No. And timber's not worth anything. People always think it's
worth.
Yeah. I had a guy come into my workshop the other week and he had a couple of pieces of 300 by 50 Kauri, and I think they were 2 meters long each. I had no idea what they looked like, but he wanted $250 for each one.
Jesus.
I was like, pulled out the calculator, did a quick calculation. I said, they're probably worth about $70 each. And he was like, "Oh, well," so I haven't heard from him.
Yeah.
It's just not worth what you think it is. So, and what's more, that 200 mil round truck is going to be 40% sap. So
Yeah.
you have nothing usable in it.
And the higher you get, the more stresses are often in that wood, so it's less stable as well.
Oh, right. Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Moving about a whole lot more.
Yeah. And you'll be cutting it, and it'll pinch and all sorts of stuff.
Well, I mean, I'll see what she wants for it, just because, if it's going, it's But it's more. I'm questioning whether I want to, on principle, that if I want this to be a business, this is not business. This is not how you run it. So am I starting off on the wrong foot by doing this?
I would advise against wood for payment. Like you're the furniture maker, you should be the one that's providing the wood.
Unless someone's got like a log of fiddleback, something blackwood or maple or something, and they don't know what it is, and you say, "Okay, sure, I'll make your table for this log."
Next week is up on eBay with 6 digits behind it. Yeah.
Do you know what species the tree is that they're milling?
It's Moreton Bay ash.
Okay, so it's not a bad wood anyway.
No, I'm actually growing a Moreton Bay ash in my front yard, and I've always looked at these trees and thought, I've always wanted to work with one of these. So that's kind of why what color is the wood, John? I
think it's kind of the bleachy color, but I'm just assuming, being an ash, it would be that lighter yellow.
I thought it was going to be red, but
I'm not sure. It's a Queensland tree, but yeah.
So the last question that I had, so you guys say, it sounds like most of the time someone says, "I want this made," and then you guys put forward some ideas. Do you find yourself steering them towards an idea? I mean, do you prefer them to come to you with the idea, Joey?
Well, that's a tough one.
Or is there no real answer to that question?
Well, I take the clients' all their suggestions in and try and put everything they want into the piece. But there's always a point where there's going to be a compromise. Generally, you can't have everything, and so I will generally just allow for the easiest thing for me to make, because there's no point in really giving yourself a super headache if it's going to cause a super headache. So I will go to the easier option and explain that this has to happen because of this. And I can't think of an example off the top of my head, but it happens all the time.
I know how to build a mortise and tenon coffee table. I've done them before. So surely everything if anyone comes to me and says, can you build me a table? I'm going to say, well, I can build you a table like that. And I'm just going to be making that table for eternity. Because
so what you need to do there is you need to price it accordingly, like you're going to do hand cut mortise and tenons, and just need to say that's why the price is why it is. Tell them that this is going to be properly joined the old traditional way, and you want to give the client as much reasons as possible as to why how much they're getting for the dollar they're spending, and then you're at the top end. You come in with your top end price and the top end quality, and then they say, right, that's a bit much for us. Is there any way we can kind of down spec it? And that's when you can go, yeah, sure, we can use dowel joinery instead, and that's going to take off, probably half a day or day's labor or something cutting mortises. So, it's a good way to, you've got to explain. I think explain why the price is why it is.
Yeah,
what are they getting?
I think that's a good point, but that's also a good reason why you should try and get an idea of budget ahead of designing, so you can kind of design it with in mind, because then you have the reasons of why you're compromising as well. Like, for a good example is with this bench seat I just got the commission for is the initial email was, we just want a really simple bench seat, 4 square legs, 1.2 meters long, 350 wide, and using the Marry that's on the shelf. So I immediately just quoted 2 days labor. It'll be done in 2 days, no worries at all. And then they actually came down for a meeting and they said, actually, we've had a think and we don't really want that 4-leg design anymore. We want something a little bit less conventional. And I said, okay, well, that can alter the price. But they said,
well, they almost certainly will alter the price.
And when they said, well, we can't, we don't want to go any higher, I said, all right, no worries. I'll come up with some concepts that use the same amount of wood so it doesn't cost you any more. In reality, the design I've come up with is actually easier. It's a lot less work, and they're happy with it. So it's worked out well.
Flash, yeah.
But it just means I managed to design it through their budget and not hit myself in the foot by including all this random stuff that isn't necessary.
Do you actually get many clients, George, that tell you a budget? I have never had a client say, this is how much money we've got to spend.
I try, and I'd say maybe 40% success rate in getting a budget. Most of the time they will be like, oh, we really don't know what we're expecting. Yeah. And then I say, great, cool. And that's when I always second guess myself, because I think that I'm either going to overcharge or undercharge. And when I think I've overcharged, I've undercharged. And when I think I've undercharged, I wouldn't say I've overcharged, but it's a lot easier than I've anticipated.
At the same time, I guess in the same question, do people ever ask, well, surely they say, oh, just give us a ballpark price for this thing. What are we looking at?
I had, just last week, I had one for that, saying, I need a platform for a manicure bench or something. I said, no worries, certainly something I can help you out with. Just give me a rough idea of size and I can provide you with a few quotes with different finishes and materials. I don't know how big it needs to be. Just give me a ballpark. Yeah. Well, if I'm assuming I can make it out of 10 sheets of plywood, then that price is going to be $10,000, well, maybe $4,000. But if I can make it out of 2 sheets of plywood, it's only going to be But it's just people will do it.
Yeah, I get it fairly often, and people seem to be very stubborn about trying to get some amount of dollar figure out of me, at least. And so I'll get quite a bit of information from them often. It's like they'll get the size and I'll get what the material wants to be. And too many times I've given a ballpark price, and then when I actually go to do the quote, it's like double for whatever reason. I just whatever, bad guess. But then when you give them the price, they're like, what? You told me it was going to be this much. I'm like, hold on a second. I didn't tell you anything. So now I absolutely refuse to give any number. I just say straight up, I will not give you a ballpark because I need to do the numbers on it.
The only kind of ballpark I give them is examples. Like, so if it's similar size and same material to a table I've done in the past, I will say, look, I've done a table that's similar to this, not the same, but that cost about $5,000 to the client.
Yeah.
And, I would be fairly comfortable in saying it'd be around that, but until we have a design, I can't say it. And 9 times out of 10, they're happy with that. Yeah. I never give them a quote without actually having a design concept.
Yeah, I think it's something that a lot of people in this industry are very wary of. I know when I've contractors or tradies coming over, can you give me a rough price?
Nope.
I've never had someone just say no, but it's always, I'm going to have to go back and have a look, which is basically them saying, no, I'm not even going to attempt it. Yeah.
Beating around the bush. Because have you discussed with them pricing or anything yet, or is it still early initial stage?
No pricing yet.
Yeah. Because one thing, like when I was first getting commissions, when I was still working out of home, I would do is I'd look at a project and figure out what tool would make this project a whole heap easier and make sure it covers the cost of that. Because, I'm not necessarily saying that you need to price it for a brand new panel saw, but if the, what are they called? The pin jigs, that, for example, that save you a ton of time on the project. So make sure you get at least that much in your pocket.
Yeah. All right. Is there anything else, Joey, you want to add?
No, I think we might as well get on to some questions if we haven't.
Yeah, well, that's what I was going to jump onto. So we've had a few questions from Leroy over the last couple of weeks, and this is his third and final one. And I think this plays in quite nicely to the point that I made earlier about the three of us being at the wood show. I've heard Carbotech are pulling out of all future wood shows in Australia. How do you think that impacts our craft? I'm not a big fan of the content or format of wood shows, but I think they could be great if the right people get involved and it's catered to young people instead of just retirees. Is there any hope? So, funnily enough, so we're going to be talking at this Wood Expo in Maleny, Queensland, and that was how we pitched it to them. Was these shows tend to be aimed at the woodworker in his workshop who lives in his workshop with a big beard and never comes out. And while there's obviously nothing wrong with it, that's a totally cool art in itself. We've seen over in the US, and it's interesting you talk about, is it killing our craft? We've seen it in the US where it's evolved and become modern, and there are a lot of people out there who are interested in it. So, with Carbotech pulling out, I mean,
all it really means is that they're obviously not making sales, and so that's a bad business decision.
I think it's also when you have a company like that, like everyone knows in our industry, everyone knows who Carbotech is, and when they pull out, it does just reflect negatively, regardless of whether they're making sales or not. So, from that perspective, it's not great.
Personally, I think it could be a good thing for the shows. I don't know how it is over on the East Coast, but for me, here in WA, TimberCon was always a WA company, and then recently it got bought out, and it's now Melbourne-based, but we've got the Perth store here, and it is taking off. And if you go to the Perth Wood Show and you go to the Carbotech stall, it's all about sales. All they want to do is sell crap. Whereas TimberCon, they're more about getting a little bit social with you, having a chat.
That's where it's going.
They've got more demos. Like Carbotech did do demos, but not as many as Carbotech. And in fact, I think this year I'm going to be at the Perth Wood Show with TimberCon doing demos. But they're doing more demos. They're more down to earth, and they don't have. I don't want to say they don't put their nose up. Like Carbotech don't put their nose up at you, but they do expect you to know. The staff are like, "This is a lathe, you idiot." Whereas at TimberCon, they're like, "Oh, come on in. This is the thing. We use this to make turnings and blah blah blah." Like the welcoming approach that is being on offer by another retailer goes to show just they're succeeding, whereas Carbotech is falling behind. And by losing a big player like Carbotech, it opens up the doors for the smaller guys.
That's true.
Potentially to come in, and they may only have one or two products, but it's a different niche. So,
that is true.
I mean, in my opinion, I think it could be a good thing for the shows as long as the gap they leave is filled by the smaller guy that has a product that is relevant and also interesting.
Joey, any thoughts? It's a bit difficult for me to really say anything relevant, given that we only have one Carbotech store here. I really only have one impression of the guys, how they operate their business, and I'm sure it's quite different.
Well, I guess it's not so much a question of Carbotech. It's more just about the fact that companies aren't interested in the shows anymore.
Well, I think that's all I can really say is if I was a business, would I want to spend money on a stall and not make any money from that stall? I mean, and any director of a business is going to say, well, this is publicity is one thing, but everyone who's going to a woodworking show probably knows who you are if you're the biggest woodworking store in the country.
Yeah, that's an interesting point. Yeah, Justin Bieber wouldn't work for promotion anymore. Yeah,
that's right. So what's the point in paying whatever the few hundred it is to put a stall in and pay the staff and get all the machinery on site and all the just related costs of shipping when you could stay exactly how you are and make one sale in your shop in the weekend, and then you've just made more money than you spent on the show.
Yeah.
So that's what I take from it.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, the monetary thing you can't avoid as a business, but also, in my opinion, it's the community thing. Like, you can't go past having a good impression at a show where you get thousands of potential customers, even if you don't sell anything. I still think that in the long term would do you good. But obviously, they're not experiencing that, so they're pulling out. But yeah, who knows?
Yeah, and I think that's. I mean, obviously, business is business. It all comes down to making profit. But that idea of nurturing that community, yeah, I think that's where the future will be, and allowing brands to become superstars as opposed to just sales engines.
Yeah.
Which, yeah, I mean, maybe the Australian public aren't ready for that yet. I don't know.
And I think, I mean, to go back a little bit and just to give more praise to TimberCon in contrast to what Carbotech are doing, but they're really approaching this new era of, marketing and all of that in the way that they have, what are they called? The YouTube videos. They're doing like the series of videos and social media sharing, whereas Carbotech have fallen behind in that to some degree. And maybe that is part of their strategy. They don't spend $10,000 on this stall, so they can put it into adapting to the new age media this year. Like, who knows what they're doing? But there's a huge part to be involved with the online community at the moment.
All right, 2 other questions. We had one from Lee Vella earlier. Do you guys ever upload an image the client sends to Google Images? See if you can track down the original they want to replicate.
So usually it's not that difficult. I usually get like screenshots from a website. So I just go to the website, see what kind of price range they're looking at, and that's a pretty good indication of. Sometimes I see that price and think I see it as a challenge, and like, oh, can I beat that price, make the same thing, and still make money? And so sometimes that's why you might see me pulling out the domino heaps, because it's like, I'm just trying to get this job done. It's still going to be just as good as any other way, but it's just quick. And that's really what it comes down to, making money.
Yeah, I personally, I've done it once for a table, but no, I don't really do it. It's a good idea, though. I should probably start thinking about it more. Also, on regards to just if it is a small designer or whatever, just reaching out.
I had one once, and the table I got linked to was 10,000 Canadian dollars.
Jesus.
And I made it for 3, and I still made money. So
yeah.
All right, and then last question from Rob, and I'm really interested in this actually. Joey, does handmade joints include using power tools, or literally? So basically, when you say to someone, "I'm going to do hand cut mortise and tenons," can you use power tools?
Okay, so I think that was in the context of when I said the high end was. So I probably didn't explain, or didn't say really, I guess, properly. So I think hand cutting joinery is great, but it's not the best way to cut joinery. Shock horror.
Yeah, we've evolved. We haven't necessarily gone backwards.
I'm on the team of Anton Gurner. I think he's down in Melbourne or Sydney. He's always said the joinery should be cut on the table saw. That's the best way you can get really good fitting joinery. And since I've had my sliding table saw, I absolutely agree. My exception is dovetails. I think personally they work best when I do them by hand. But so I guess when I say hand cutting joinery, what I mean is not screwed together or dominoed together. It's actual real timber joinery. It's just however that's made doesn't really matter. But if I do it with a machine, it's going to fit together way nicer than if I do it by hand, because I guess that could just come down to practice. I do a lot of hand work with chisels and hand saws and hand planes, and I think I'm pretty good at it. I still can't do a perfect dovetail, not like a machine could do it. Not that like I say, I don't do machine dovetails because I don't like the look of them, but yeah.
Cool. All right. Well, what are we all watching? Jordan, do you want to start us off?
Yeah, so Woodworking with Tim, I believe, is the channel name. There is a link in the description if I got that wrong. But it's just a wood turning YouTube channel, and he's really animated and funny, and I watched a few of his videos this week.
Cool.
Yeah, I had a quick look. He did some cool stuff.
Yeah.
Joey?
I was watching Naughty Dog Workshop. I've followed him for a long time. He's actually got a very small channel on YouTube, so go give him a subscribe.
Yeah.
He does fairly short videos, and I think his last video was a dining table build in 3 and a bit minutes, which is crazy, but it seemed to work, and it wasn't even sped up. He does a lot of slow shots, and it just was fairly nicely edited, and I thought it was a good job, so go check him out.
I must say, I actually watched that a day or two ago, and I was watching this going, this guy's going to be perfect for the show, because that table was really nice. It was, and as you say, it was a good video. The editing was good and all that. So, yeah, I don't remember the last video that he put out, though, so I think it's been a while.
Oh, the one before that?
Yeah.
Look, today, and it was like a month ago.
Was it? Okay, yeah, because I was going to say, I haven't seen much from him.
He slowed down quite a bit, and I wonder if that's because the channel isn't building so much, but stick with it.
Yeah.
I've been watching RR Buildings. So these are the guys that did Jimmy DeResta's workshop.
Yep.
They're currently working on a farm shop. This building is maybe 10 cars wide by about 3 cars. It's enormous. Like, it's one of those buildings where you just think, how did they conceptualize that size? I mean, the concrete pad was just anyway. The design method that they use for the timber work is really interesting. They basically build the entire wall, and then they lift it up in one go, and they, instead of it being then nailed into the nailed into that bottom plate, it's just on.
They've got pillars there.
Yeah, it's like U-bracket.
Yeah.
Well, there's no post going into the ground.
No,
there's
it's a
just
steel
these
bracket, eh?
Yeah, which is apparently quite interesting. And all of the rigidity comes from the panels that they put on the plywood panels.
Yeah.
Stops the whole thing from moving.
That's how the Americans build everything's just sheathed in like a particle board or plywood type thing. And that just is the best bracing for anything.
Yeah, so it's really interesting, but it's just amazing watching it come together. And what's really nice is a lot of building channels, the guys are building and filming secondary. This guy, oh man, what's his name?
Yeah, I forget.
But he's got a drone, so he's constantly flying his drone around. You're getting all these amazing shots.
Yeah.
It's a really, really good channel. RR Buildings, yeah. All the links to what we've talked about will be in the description down below. So yeah, go have a look. All right. Well, is there anything else you guys wanted to add?
No, I'm good.
No, everything is checked off the list.
All right. Well, thank you very much for listening or watching, guys. I hope you enjoyed that show. My name is Robin from Robin Lewis Makes. We were joined by Joey from King Post Timber Works and Jordan Crawford from Periodic Furniture Studio. Thanks very much for tuning in, and we'll see you guys again same time next Thursday. Have a good one.
Have a good one.
Bye.